Past tense or present tense in your memoir? What do I use? What did I use? What will I have used? So I wanted to do a video on the question, should you use past tense or present tense in your memoir? It's a question that my students ask me a lot, and they get a little bit wrapped up in this question. So my answer to them usually is this. Present tense has the effect of providing immediacy. A lot of memoir writers love present tense because they feel like it puts the reader there with you. There's this idea of living through the events with you. So present tense provides immediacy. Past tense has the advantage of allowing you to reflect back on events. And by that, I mean, the idea of writing in past tense implies that you are looking back on your life. And there's actually an advantage to that. And the advantage to that is you can insert information that the you that you once were actually didn't know at the time. So you can insert information that you didn't have back then. So that is the advantage of past tense. You can have this older, wiser narrator who chimes in and reflects on a scene, gives us information that that 8-year-old you didn't actually have. In general, that is the basic difference between using present and past tense. Present tense has immediacy, past tense has the advantage of adding that extra information. However, I'm going to contradict myself. This has been my standard answer. And in most cases, it really does apply. If you want a simple answer, that would be it. However, in today's video, I actually want to talk about present tense, the use of present tense, and how it doesn't necessarily provide more immediacy. And I also want to talk about the use of past tense and show how it's really not your only option when it comes to using this older, wiser narrator, adding this extra information that you wouldn't have known at the time. So that's my goal today. First of all, let's talk about immediacy, the idea that present tense provides you with this sense of immediacy. It puts your reader there with you. Your reader is living through this with you. Well, yes, present tense can do that. So let me give you an example of an author who uses present tense to write his memoir. This is from J.M. Coetzee's Scenes from a Provincial Life. It is late, well past 7:30. Save for the three of them, the gardens are deserted. They have had to give up their cricket. It is too dark to see the ball. So they have wrestling fights as if they were children again, rolling about on the grass, tickling each other, laughing and giggling. He stands up, takes a deep breath. A surge of exultation passes through him. He thinks, I have never been happier in my life. I would like to be with Greenberg and Goldstein forever. They part. It is true. He would like to live like this forever, riding his bicycle through the wide and empty streets of Worcester in the dusk of a summer's day, when all of the other children have been called in and he alone is abroad like a king. Okay, so there we're living through this little snippet of a scene right along with the narrator. So this is present tense, and it does have this sense of immediacy. So initially I would tell my students, well, if you want it to be really immediate, use present tense. But the more I read, the more I started to feel like I didn't really notice a difference when it comes to immediacy. In fact, I have a lot of students and I will read their work, and then I'll talk to them a week later and we'll be talking about what they've written. And I'll say, wait, do you write in present or past tense? Because I honestly can't remember. To me, there isn't really much of a difference in immediacy of this sense of putting us there with you. Let me give you a sample from a different memoir. This is written in past tense, and see if you feel any difference when it comes to the sense of immediacy. This is from Know My Name by Chanel Miller. The deputy asked if I was feeling okay. As he leaned over me, his eyes did not waver, did not wrinkle into a smile, just stayed perfectly round and still, two small pawns. I thought, yeah, should I not be? I was turning my head and looking around for my sister. The man in the red windbreaker introduced himself to me as a Stanford dean. What's your name? Their focus was unnerving. I wondered why they didn't ask my sister. She must be here somewhere. I'm not a student, just visiting, I said. I'm Chanel. Okay, so this is written in past tense, but for me, I don't really notice that. I have the same emotional reaction to this piece. I feel like I'm there with the narrator, and I don't think tense has anything to do with that. So writing in present or past tense, does present tense put us there with the narrator? I don't think it necessarily does. I actually don't feel any different. So let me go back to the other issue with writing in present tense versus past tense. And it's this idea, and it's an idea that I've held for a long time, that you need past tense in order to use this older, wiser narrator in order to reflect back on events, to give us extra information that the person living through the events wouldn't have had at the time. So let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of this older, wiser narrator who chimes in to add information that the younger person living through the events wouldn't have had at the time. This is from This Boy's Life. So let me set this up for you. Tobias Wolff has just found his stepfather's gun, and he's loaded it and is standing in front of a window watching the people walking by. Hammer cocked around in the chamber, finger resting lightly on the trigger, I drew a bead on whoever walked by. Women pushing strollers, children, garbage collectors laughing and calling to each other, anyone. And as they passed under my window, I sometimes had to bite my lip to keep from laughing in the ecstasy of my power over them and at their absurd and innocent belief that they were safe. Okay, so here this is from the point of view of the person who's actually living through these events. We're with young Tobias Wolff as he's standing in this window pointing a gun at people. Now he slips into the older, wiser narrator, information that younger Tobias wouldn't have had at the time. But over time, the innocence I laughed at began to irritate me. It was a peculiar kind of irritation. I saw it years later in men I served with and felt it myself, when unarmed Vietnamese civilians talked back to us while we were herding them around. Power can be enjoyed only when it is recognized and feared. Fearlessness in those without power is maddening to those who have it. Okay, so there's that extra information that we wouldn't have gotten had this book not been written by this older, wiser narrator. He can look back on his life. So he does two things. At one point, he's this young boy pointing this gun at people through the window. And then we remember that this is being told by this older narrator who knows a lot more than this young boy did at the time. So that is why I usually tell my students past tense gives you this extra level of information. And for the most part, it's true. But every once in a while, I do come across books that are written in present tense that still make use of the older, wiser narrator. So I just wanted to give you one example of an author who does this. So first of all, I want to give you the scene itself, written from the point of view of the younger person. This is from A Cup of Water Under My Bed by Daisy Hernandez, or Daisy Hernandez, depending on how you want to pronounce that here. Miss Reynolds is the kindergarten teacher. She has glasses that make her eyes look like oversized buttons on her face. And she speaks the funny language that comes out of the television set at home when we are not watching telenovelas or the noticias, which is to say that she talks like the cartoon character, Mighty Mouse. It is English, a language that sounds like marbles in the mouth. It is fun to hear, but mostly because the mouse on the TV screen is flying. Sitting in the classroom, I wait for Miss Reynolds to start talking like my mother in Spanish. Surely it won't be long now. An hour passes, 2 hours, an entire day it feels like, and still it is all Mighty Mouse. Okay, so that's the younger her, the person who actually lived through events, recounting the story. Then she switches to the point of view of the person she is now. And what I find fascinating is that it's still present tense, but yet it works. Let me read this to you. I don't know if this is what actually happened on my first day in kindergarten, but it is what I remember of my first 2 years in school. A few memories can be confirmed by research and on-site inspection. Mighty Mouse on television, the school's black iron bars. My mother verifies the station wagon lady and the ethnicity of the other children, and school photographs offer details of the uniform and my teacher's face. So here she recounts this event from her childhood in present tense, and then she switches to the point of view of the person she is now, and it's still present tense. And for me, it works. So what should you take away from this? Well, present tense has an immediacy. I don't think that's really true. I think present tense and past tense have the same sense of immediacy. The way to put your reader there with you is to put us inside your head, which is something I talk about a lot in other videos. When it comes to this idea of being able to add extra information because you're writing in past tense, you have this older, wiser narrator who can chime in from time to time. Is this the case? Well, yes and no. I would say for the most part, if you do want to use this older, wiser narrator, the great majority of authors tend to prefer past tense. However, there are exceptions, and I just gave you one of them. So should you write in present tense or past tense? It's really a matter of personal preference. It's like asking, should you get a cat or a bunny rabbit as a pet? So one thing I will say is that for some writers, it can be very helpful to write in present tense, at least as they're starting to write their scenes, because it forces them to make the scene immediate, to give us that sense of immediacy. Does it actually feel more immediate than the past tense version? No, it really doesn't. But it may force you as a writer to put yourself there and to think of the things that happen one by one, to think of these details, and it may help put your reader inside the scene. Do you have to keep it in present tense? No, you can later, if you decide you prefer past tense, you can take the scene that you've written in present tense and change all the verbs if you want. So if writing in present tense helps you, it makes writing easier, it makes writing a scene easier, it helps you remember those details, go for it. And then if you feel like it, change it to past tense later, or keep it in present tense if you like present tense. I hope you found this helpful. If you'd like a free class on memoir writing, be sure to click in the link in the description right below this video. And if you click like or subscribe, I'd be grateful. Take care, guys. See you next time.